Have you ever examined your life? Have you ever looked at the things that are really important to you, the things that you're investing in, where you spend your time? Well, as Danielle and I started going through a process of being intentional in the lives of our kids, we looked at everything that we were doing. And while we were doing that, we ran across a great story of a great king, King Hezekiah. The story begins in 2 Kings chapter 18. It's the story of the great Hezekiah. King Hezekiah was the greatest king in Judah. In fact, King Hezekiah was obedient to all that the Lord had asked him to do. But one day, King Hezekiah was sick. And the prophet Isaiah came to the king and said, "Get your house in order because surely you're about to die." Well, King Hezekiah cried out to the Lord. And before the prophet got out of the courtyard, the word of the Lord came to him. He went back to the king and said, "King, that the Lord has heard your cries and he is granting you 15 more years to live." While he was sick, the king of Babylon sent messengers and gifts to King Hezekiah. And when they arrived, the king took the messengers all through his palace and showed him everything that he had had. That burned anger against the Lord. The Lord sent the prophet back to King Hezekiah. The prophet Isaiah said, "What have you done and who are those people?" King Hezekiah said, "They came from Babylon and I showed them everything in my palace. There's not one thing that I did not show them. I showed them all the wealth that I had. I showed them all the cars and my homes and all the things that I had accumulated." Well, because of that, the prophet Isaiah said, "Because of what you have done, the Lord says that everything that you have will be carried off into Babylon. In fact, your children will become eunuchs in the city of Babylon." Now that was pretty compelling, but the most compelling part of that story was how King Hezekiah responded. He said, "At least there'll be peace and security in my lifetime. So regardless of what happens to my kids, so regardless of what happens to the next generations, I've got peace and security in my lifetime." So as we examine our lives, we have to look at the things we're accumulating, where we spend our time, what's really important to us. The story of King Hezekiah tells us that his wealth and his possessions, all that he accumulated, was more important to him than what happened to the next generation. As long as there was peace and security in his lifetime, he was okay with that, even though he knew his children would be carried off as eunuchs in the city of Babylon. So we must ask ourselves a question. What's more important? Are we willing to be intentional in the lives of our kids to change the generations?